dedication J.C. Cook has bestowed on the people of South Carolina, most particularly those of Clemson. The House takes great pleasure in wishing him all the best in the days ahead. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives that the members of the South Carolina House of Representatives by this resolution recognize and commend the Honorable James C. J.C. Cook III, former mayor of Clemson, for his 20 years of dedicated service as a member of the Town Council, and wish him much success and fulfillment in his future endeavors. Congratulations, J.C.
Thank you. This is quite an honor. First of all, I couldn't have served without having my wife by my side and her agreeing to go along with that. And I'm sure each of you on council that have spouses know that. Also, my family and the citizens of Clemson. You know, I did it for the love of the city, and I feel that everything I did was in the best interest of the citizens of the city of Clemson. I tried to take every course I could through the Municipal Association. When I first came on, I didn't know anything, but I learned a lot on City Council and through the educational opportunities available to council members and mayors. I feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge. I'm proud of all of you for serving on City Council and as mayor now. You have a hard job to do. I enjoyed all my time as a council member and a mayor, and I hope that you enjoy yours as well. Thank you, and thank the representatives of the state of South Carolina for bestowing this honor upon me.
Yeah, Nancy up here.
Nancy?
Actually, Karen and Jerry, if you want.
Take your oath first.
First representative. Yes. Nancy and Karen, if you want. And then the last thing, do you want the rest of the city council behind real quickly? Is that good? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Karen and Nancy, if y'all want to stay. You're very much a part of it. All right.
Oh, come on.
All right.
Help improve the photos.
Thank you. Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, sir. Thank you for the resolution. Well deserved. Next, we're going to have Jeff Stone. Jeff Stone's going to come in and we're going to read a proclamation, recognition of service for 29 plus years. Wait till everybody comes on in. All right, this is a proclamation of recognition of service for Jeff Stone. Whereas Jeff Stone began his law enforcement career with the Clemson City Police Department in 1994, whereas in November of 1994, Stone received the J.P. Strom Award at the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy for graduating with an academic average above 96, whereas during his years with the City Police Department, Stone received several Officer of the Month nominations and letters of commendation from citizens, whereas Stone rose from the ranks from patrolman, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, commander before being appointed to deputy chief in July of 2017, then serving as acting police chief through most of 2020 after the departure of former Chief Dixon. Whereas during his career, Stone gained expertise in general investigations, traffic collision reconstruction, department departmental training, and other administrative specialties. Whereas throughout his time as acting chief, the COVID-19 pandemic reached a tipping point, and he was frequently consulted on implementing public safety measures, which we extremely greatly appreciate, including the emergency mask ordinance. Whereas in the final months with the city, Stone has worked in the administration department helping to oversee many of the city's capital projects, including the Little John Community Center expansion, whereas Jeff Stone retired at the end of March after nearly 30 years of serving and protecting our city. Now, therefore, I, Robert Halfacre, Mayor of the City of Clemson, South Carolina, on behalf of the city and its residents, do hereby proclaim April 5th, 2021 as Jeffrey Stone Day, in thanks and recognitions for his years of service to the city of Clemson, and wish him an enjoyable and relaxing retirement. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the city of Clemson to be affixed this 5th day of April 2021.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for cutting you off. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. It's been a wonderful 29 years plus. I've enjoyed every minute of it that I've been here. And one of the things that I have to point out is that all of the accomplishments that I've had over those years couldn't have been done without a lot of other good people there along beside me. So I certainly appreciate everything everybody's done to help me throughout my career, and look forward to seeing all the others' continued success.
Well said. Thank you. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Well deserved. And Chief, did you want to?
No,
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to, so Jeff, are you okay coming up with?
Yeah.
Yeah, picture of, we'll all take it to city council if that's cool. I'm going to come up. That's all right. I've known Jeff since he was 14.
He drive your
Oh, yeah. Or we've known each other since we were 14.
That's what I was waiting on.
That's when it was normal. You had high school students driving buses, man. That was the way it was.
There you go.
Thank you, Jeff.
Family, please. Yeah. Y'all, city council or no?
Family photos.
Family photos.
you want upright or what, or side? Side.
You see, my life was one of these.
Y'all standing, right? You need to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Take them off, take a nice picture.
Just don't breathe in that direction.
All right.
Thank you.
Once again.
Congratulations again.
All right, Jim.
Thank you.
Probably should have told you it was Jeff Stone Day this morning, early.
Yeah, I know.
Bad move there.
At least it's not.
Make it tomorrow, every day.
That is about over.
Thank you so much. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
President, yeah. So next, we have proclamations for Women's History Month honorees.
I didn't know Rosa was out there.
We're gonna jump right in. Rosa, thank you for being here.
Yes.
And this is a proclamation of recognition of service for Rosa Shaw Graydon. Whereas Rosa Shaw Graydon, through her tireless leadership efforts, continue to push us all to be better and to be more thoughtful of the challenges facing our minority communities. Whereas Rosa Graydon is the granddaughter of George Shaw, who was born an enslaved man in 1857 and then incarcerated on a mischarge in the late 1880s, leading to him being leased from the state by Clemson trustees to help build what would become Clemson University. Whereas by 1900, George Shaw and his wife, Rosetta, began purchasing the land around the town that soon would be called Clemson and would ultimately amass about 100 acres, including Shaw Street, where his home and farm were located, and the Shaw children owned several successful businesses, including Shaw's Grocery and David Shaw's Auto Mechanic Shop in Clemson. Whereas where the Shaw's descendants were not able to inherit the properties, which were sold for just a few $1,000s, the Shaws taught their children and grandchildren to cultivate and empower the community to help make lives better. Whereas Rosa Graydon, as one of these grandchildren, was left with the heart to help make lives better, especially for those in minority communities. Whereas Graydon was hired as an administrative specialist at Clemson University and was among the first employees appointed to serve on the President's Commission on the Status of Black Faculty and Staff in 1998. Whereas Graydon chairs the board for the recently formed Shaw Center for Housing, named for her grandparents and developed to support the city's minority neighborhoods. Now, therefore, we, Clemson City Council, do hereby recognize Rosa Shaw Graydon for her dedication to continuing the Shaw legacy and improving the lives of previously unrepresented communities, and honor her profound impact on the city with the Women's History Community Service Award. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the City of Clemson to be affixed this 5th day of April 2021. Congratulations. Your opportunity if you want to say anything. Absolutely, Rosa. I don't mean to, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, so.
Yeah. I first want to say thank you to you all for recognizing this, and trust me, it won't go unnoticed about the other things that need to be done in our community, and not just our community, all communities, because we've got to work together because we are one, and we want to become whole. But I also thank my parents and those that came before me for the legacy that they set before me, and I didn't even know that it was going to happen. It just showed up. So I want to say thank you, and for the opportunity, and for those that I get on the nerves of. I just want to say I'm just forever grateful.
Well deserved. Thank you. Rosa, would you like to come up? Can we take a picture, all of us?
How are you feeling?
I know.
Some can stand up here, yeah.
Yeah, I can, so, I'm gonna stand by, so.
Bob and I'll hold her in the back row. Let's be in the back row.
We'll put Bob in the center.
Huge smile. It makes the eyes smile, doesn't it?
There you go.
Good to see you, Rosa.
Thank you, Rhoda.
Bye, Rosa. I just sent you.
All right. Oh, look, I got a big picture.
So our next honoree is recognition of service for the League of Women Voters.
They're coming.
I see Holly.
Ada Lou and
I see
Eleanor
Ada
are coming.
Lou. Yes, yes. Perfect.
Welcome. Thank you.
We appreciate you being here tonight. So we're going to read a proclamation. Proclamation of recognition of service for the League of Women Voters. Whereas the Clemson Area League of Women's Voters was established on January 30th, 1968, over 53 years ago, to encourage informed citizen participation in government. Whereas today, the League's membership, more than 120 men and women of all ages who are committed to increasing public involvement in all elections through voter registration drives, candidate town halls, advocacy for our democracy, and advancing causes for the Clemson community. And whereas the League's strong efforts have resulted in a more informed and active electoral across Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens counties, whereas the 4 founding members of the Clemson Area League of Women's Voters, Holly, Ada, Eleanor, and Ellen, are all still in our community and more committed than ever to making democracy work for everyone. Whereas in 2021, the COVID pandemic meant the League faced many unique challenges of adapting their outreach methods for both national presidential election as well as a census, and a challenge to which they responded effectively and overall admirably, obviously. Now, therefore, we, Clemson City Council, do hereby recognize Holly Olberg, Ada Lou Steyer, Eleanor Hare, Ellen Renique. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it. See, you took care of me, Holly. So, for helping. She did this when I was yeehaw, too. For helping us to create this essential community group, as well as all of the former and current members of the Clemson Area League of Women's Voters, for all their efforts to create a more informed public and honor their profound impact with the Women's History Community Service Award. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the City of Clemson to be affixed this 5th day of April 2021. Congratulations.
Thank you, Reverend. I think I'm the designated spokesperson for this group. We were all on the original board. We were so young, we had to have a babysitter for board meetings. And we have aged considerably since then. Eleanor and Ada Lou and Ellen Renique and I have all served on the state board of the League, of which I am currently co-president. And I think it's a wonderful organization. It's a joy to work with people like you who are dedicated to public service and to make sure that you hear from citizens and that citizens are involved in elections and concerned about public affairs. Sometimes you don't have any difficulty getting them interested in public affairs, but other times they're sort of out there not paying attention. So we appreciate the work that you do, and we are honored to be recognized for the work that we do. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
In the 70s, there were 3 of the 6 city council members were members of the League of Women Voters.
Okay.
And also the chairman of the planning commission at that same time, which also makes coming here tonight real special.
We appreciate you being here. All right, and if y'all would like to come up, we'll take a picture if that's good.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, you get to be in the front row.
I'll be right here.
Yeah, you get to be in the front row.
I won't let those women have front and center, man. I'm not interrupting that.
It also gets really quiet too while we're taking pictures. So. Yes, ma'am. All right. Appreciate y'all being here. Well, we hope to be open fully very soon. Very soon. Very soon. So we're looking forward to that day.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Good to meet you personally. Yes, finally.
So we have 2 more proclamations. I'm going to read this next one for Donate Life Month. It's April 2021. Whereas most of the most meaningful gifts that a human being can bestow upon another is the gift of life through an organ, eye, or tissue donation. Whereas more than 108,000 children and adults await life-saving transplants, of which more than 1,300 in South Carolina. Whereas in 2020, for the first time ever, more than 200 South Carolinians said yes to organ donation, saving the lives of 514 people awaiting their second chance at life. Whereas we are still losing an average of 20 lives every day due to the lack of organs available for planted, because of every 10 minutes, another name is added to the National Transplant Waiting List. Whereas according to the national research conducted by the Donor Life America, more than 90% of Americans support donation, and more than 54% of South Carolinians have been registered at the DMV. Whereas the decision to become an organ donor can save up to 8 lives in tissue donation and can enhance many more men, women, children who depend on the generosity and sacrifice of others to receive a second chance of life. Whereas every person should support their life-saving effort by learning more about organ, eye, and tissue donation, making their families aware of their South Carolina driver's license. Now, therefore, I, Robert Halfaker, Mayor of the City of Clemson, South Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Donate Life Month, and in witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the City of Clemson to be affixed this 5th day of April 2021. And then we're going to go, obviously, our last proclamation. Thank you so much for your patience.
No worries.
No worries, I love it. So our last proclamation is our Crime Victims' Rights Week, which is April 18th through 24th of this year. Whereas the victims' rights movement has resulted in the passage of laws at the local, state, and federal levels that establish essential rights for victims and have provided victims with ways to participate meaningfully through the criminal justice process. Whereas the rights of crime victims are best protected when all participants in the criminal justice process, not only victims, but are appropriately educated about victims' rights. Whereas supporting and advocating for victims of crime is crucial to the United States justice system because our support honors the experiences of victims and allows them to find autonomy and empowerment through achieving self-defined goals. Whereas the accomplishments of the victims' rights movement achieved through compassion and collaboration and built on the courageous advocacy of individual victims and their families across the country, inspire us hope for future progress and greater healing. Whereas we are determined to respond to crime and violence by helping victims find not only support, recovery, and justice, but also a sense of hope for their future. Whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to recommit to ensuring accessible, appropriate, trauma-informed services are offered to all victims of crime. Whereas the City of Clemson is hereby dedicated to strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of crime, building resilience in our communities and our victim service providers, and bringing hope and healing to all victims and survivors. Now, therefore, I, Robert Halfaker, Mayor of the City of Clemson, do here proclaim the week of April 18th through the 24th, 2021, to be Crime Victims' Rights Week, reaffirming our city's commitment to creating a victim service and criminal justice response that assists all victims of crime throughout the year, and expressing our sincere gratitude and appreciation for those community members, victim service providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving our response to all victims of crime so they may find relevant assistance, support, justice, and peace. In witness whereof, I hereby set my hand and have caused the great seal of the city to be affixed this 5th day of April 2021. Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
We
Mayor.
appreciate it. Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot. We'd love.
It's okay, it's okay.
Now, I know, you're used to this, so, so thank you.
Yeah, I mean, as many of you may know, the victim rights fight has been going on for well over 40 years officially. I've been so blessed to be a small part of that fight for the last 15 years. We've seen it come a long way, and it would not come near as far. We still got a long way to go, but if it weren't from the support of the council and the mayor and my department, so thank you all for everything that you do for my survivors. You really make a difference.
We appreciate it. Do you want to tell about the calendar of events, or do you want to?
We'll be doing several events, and you all are invited. Anybody is actually invited in the city who wants to participate. On April 13th, we will be planning a pinwheel garden in front of the police department. We will be planning those pinwheels to remind passerbys about the horrible crime of child abuse. The pinwheels are supposed to represent the innocence of a child. So we're just trying to bring awareness to child abuse because it is Child Abuse Prevention Month. We're also doing events for tabling downtown to try to target some of our college demographic to work on sexual assault awareness prevention month. And then we will also be back downtown for Victim Rights Week, handing out a bunch of goodies and crime resources and things like that.
Thank you for the
Thank you so
information.
much.
Chief, yes?
Mayor, pardon me for a second. If you all don't know Deborah Shockley, she is our victim advocate for the police department, does an awesome job in our victim advocacy as well as other things and helping us. I'll be giving an annual report later. She helped comprise it, did most of it, if for anything. But one of the things I want to emphasize, a couple of things here. We have a long way to go still for our victim rights. Unfortunately, some of the crime reform laws that have gone through, it's eroded some of our victims' not only rights, but also the resources available to them. I know in the law enforcement community, we are evolving in the way we investigate crimes and what we know about trauma and how it affects not only children, but adults, and how it affects their memory recall. And when we initially contact them and interview them about what happens, what they don't tell us or how they tell us doesn't necessarily mean that they're being deceptive. It's just because they've gone through trauma and their brains are not processing the information correctly. So we're starting to learn that, but we need to continue to do that and to continue to go down that path so that we make sure that we get the proper resources and help our victims out in these situations. So I urge all of you at the state level, if you have any laws that are going through that bolster this and support it, I urge you to support that so we can go forward. And also, you know, one thing I want to point out too, she mentioned child abuse. Well, because of COVID, we've seen child abuse reports severely decline, and that's because children were not going to school and they're not going to the places where mandatory reports have to come in and those investigations have to occur. So I don't even want to think about some of the things that are occurring out there. So I urge everyone out there, if they think something is going on, please report it. It's our job to find out, and that way we can stop people from being victimized. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. And I was just going to say, I concur wholeheartedly with the work that I do at Clemson. And that Deborah, if you don't know, Alicia Smith, Title IX coordinator at Clemson. But it is such an important job that you're doing in the victims' rights. And so I appreciate that, and I wanted to say that publicly because that is very, very important. And if we have an opportunity to make sure that we have a voice, then that's important to be able to do that because, as you stated, we're losing resources, and we need to ensure that we don't lose those resources, but that we increase those resources. And the trauma-informed training is so critical, so I appreciate you saying that. And if I can help in any way, please let me know. But that is something that's dear and near to my heart as well. So thank you for what you do. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Deborah, do you want to, so we can make sure we come up front? Is that okay? Yeah. Making sure you're, yeah. No.
They kind of put you on the spot with that.
I'll wait for your picture. Everyone else? The official proclamation.
Okay, have it on, Robert.
Man, Fran's missing out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
guess it's my
Well, I
turn.
appreciate everybody's patience. Talk about a well-deserving list of individual and advocacy programs. So we appreciate everybody's patience in allowing us to do proclamations, resolutions, honor many years of service, and recognize many individuals and groups. So thank y'all very much for your time. Now I'm going to turn it over to public session, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Smith.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for the proclamations, and I just want our members who are out there viewing and also can hear us via the YouTube, if you'd like to make a comment during public session, please call in to 653-9886 and follow the instructions. We're taking comments that are not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. So if you have a comment you'd like to make, you can also, if you're one of the attendees and you want to raise your hand, we can actually see that as well. And we will call on you and allow you to go ahead and speak if you choose to. If you do not want to speak and you want to put something in the chat, go ahead and utilize the chat feature, and you can actually put a public comment in there, and we'll read that out to you, read that out publicly as well. Once again, that number is 653-9886, and follow those instructions. And if you're going to call in or be able to speak, we ask that you keep it to 3 minutes or less, so that we make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. Do we have any numbers?
We do have a couple callers. Last four digits, 6227.
Okay, 6227. You would go ahead and state your name.
Corey Calbaugh.
Can you say that again?
Corey Calbaugh,
Okay.
City of Clemson.
And what's the address?
103 Roslyn Drive, Clemson.
So could you stop watching the live and make your comment?
My comment is just that I'm here to support Dr. Friedman. I'm the lead epidemiologist at Clemson. And I'm just here for questions after he speaks, if anybody has any.
We did a lot of your live stream.
I'm going to go.
Okay.
Okay.
You muted him? Can I have caller?
John.
Yes.
There we go.
Can I have caller 546 if you go ahead and make your comment?
Hey, this is Charlie Kernigan. Is it still echoing?
No, it's not.
Okay. I live at 123 Ashley Road.
Okay.
And I'm calling in about the troll. I know last meeting, Fran had mentioned at the 1 hour and 53 minute mark that they'll be discussing it again this week. And so I wanted to be sure to call in. It's my understanding that it may have been pushed to the budget, and I think that's a great thing. But I've reached out to different members of council over the last few weeks, and I've been encouraged by each and every one of them to call or come in for public comment, which I mostly disagree with, because I think that we elect you all, and it should be, when we go to our council members, it's your job as the conduit to the town. You shouldn't have to have us also come in and talk, but that's okay. I'm here anyway. My big concern on the troll is the cost and the fact that it seems to have very little support outside of the room that you all are in. I would like to hear at some point what the Arts Commission's, if they're in favor of it. Chamber of Commerce, nobody has spoken out from them. Downtown businesses, I've been around talking to them, not in favor. We could use that money in the town for other arts projects, and I've put a couple out there that I think would work. I know we have some council members that are big into PRTM, and I think using that money as a conduit for arts and camps would be huge, especially in a town where so few children go to camp. It's very much the upper echelon. We could be quite a catalyst in offering free art camp. I can't imagine what $180,000 would do to benefit both the arts locally and with kids. Arts funding is being cut daily in public schools and public sectors. Hiring an outside artist from Denmark to come and build a wooden troll that's sitting in the middle of a field with no access seems to sort of go against what 5 years of funding has built up to do. And the other thing I thought would be nice would be to see, or possibly use the money towards, would be to hire local artists. I mean, I can't imagine what that kind of money would do, life-changing money, to people locally who may want to see their art displayed around town, and then possibly bring in more folks. If you had, say, 15, 18 artists getting $10,000 grants from the city, how much that would impact. So it's really just a full-throated effort to say that I'm against it, and I think we need to truly look at other avenues, and hopefully you guys will do that in the next few weeks and months. And that's all.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your call, and definitely hear your concerns, and we'll take that into consideration. We appreciate your call.
Appreciate it.
Okay. We did get Corey did ask if that was his phone. He said he hung up. So is there any other way he could call in?
If he calls back in, if he's listening, just make sure that if you are watching your Zoom stream, that you mute it, turn the volume down, or just call on a different device, so we can make a mic hot on a Zoom call for attendee if they raise their hand.
Okay. I hope you heard that, Corey. If you wanted to call in, you have to turn down your live stream, either put it on silent mute or just call back using the phone, the number that we read with the 653-9886. I do have one public comment that was submitted to the My Civic app, and I'll go ahead and read that. It says, Clemson City Council, dear council members, I am writing as a follow-up to the public hearing meeting of March 25th concerning the proposed 2021-R-04 that bans multi-use within commercial zoning classification. As proposed, it is a form of the government taking away the property owner's rights for improvements and development. This ban is an extensive restriction. I recognize that extensive tracts of multifamily apartments have negative impacts unless properly mitigated with good design and livability elements such as retail and other mixed-use development. Mixed-use development offers good flexibility for improvements and smart growth, which the city previously stated it endorsed in its own comprehensive plan. Otherwise, the property can become stagnant and dated. Without that flexibility, it will hinder the property owner's options. In place of an arbitrary and capricious ban, this zoning issue should be sent back to staff for work with the owners to modify the mixed-use development with controls in keeping with its plan. Please send this proposal resolution back to the Planning Commission and staff for different wording. As always, I'm happy to discuss this issue with you all. Thank you. Respectfully, John McIntyre. Address, 378 College Avenue, Clemson, South Carolina. So that is the last public comment. So thank you, John McIntyre. We have that noted, and we'll also make sure we take that into consideration. There are no other public comments at this time, so I will go ahead and close the public session and turn it back over to Mayor Halfacre.
Yep.
May I make
Yes.
one quick announcement?
Yes.
We did have some folks that were watching the proclamations at the beginning of the meeting. We do have a lot of devices on our network here, and I am in the process of uploading just a local recording right now to the YouTube channel. So look for a message from YouTube, or just go to YouTube and do a search for City of Clemson here in the next half hour.
Thank you, Lowell. Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Appreciate it. One other thing I'll add is just remember, like Councilmember Smith was mentioning, that you can go on our city website to submit comments online before 2 o'clock the day of our council meeting. So just keep that in mind as well. Not only can you call in, but you can also submit it by email. So thank you very much again. Next is the approval of minutes from March 15th, 2021, City Council meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes as written from our 15th.
Thank you, Catherine. Second?
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Bob. Any further discussion? All right. Unless I hear a no, that means everybody's in agreement for the approval of this motion. I will give a chance if anybody's against. All right, it's approved. Now we'll move into reports and discussion agenda items. Our first will be receive a report from Dr. Freeman on the wastewater COVID-19 testing. Andy, I believe you're going to lead this discussion, if I'm not mistaken.
I was just going to introduce Dr. Friedman here, tell him we appreciate the work that he's doing, and he has some updated information for us, especially on or related to the variants in the virus. So I'm just, without further ado, I'm just going to let him jump right into it.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you to the council for allowing me to talk to you tonight about what we've been doing with the monitoring the health of the community vis-a-vis the wastewater and the virus present in the wastewater. So can you give me a thumbs up, Andy, if you can see the screen? All right, thank you. Okay, so I want to acknowledge the fact that Corey Calbaugh, who's on the call tonight, is here to help me out with some of the public health questions. And I invited Ted Swan, who's presented to the council before, but I don't think he could make it tonight. So wastewater-based epidemiology has been applied to the virus. SARS-CoV-2 is the virus that causes the disease. Symptomatic and asymptomatic individuals who are infected with the virus can shed it in their feces, and that creates an opportunity to monitor for the presence of the virus in sewage. When we do that, it can indicate at the community level if transmission of the virus is imminent, since people shed the virus up to 2 weeks before they exhibit clinical symptoms, and that way it's a leading indicator, or when transmission is underway, especially in the absence of extensive individual testing, or on the decline in response to efforts to reduce transmission. So just a quick overview of the virus. I put check marks to the three next to the three parts that are the most critical: the spike protein, the nucleocapsid protein, and an open reading frame. The virus is an RNA virus. It's inside an envelope made up of proteins and glycoproteins on the surface. And these three genes are what we are monitoring in the wastewater. So the way it works is that we collect 24-hour composite samples. This is standard practice at the treatment plants that we've been monitoring. Earlier in the year, we also collected grab samples from manholes on the campus, but we haven't done that in a while, but that's another option for sample collection. Once we have them, the samples are analyzed in a lab using a procedure that looks a lot like the procedure used for clinical samples. And that means you extract the RNA virus from the sewage, turn the RNA, ribonucleic acid, into deoxyribonucleic acid, called copy DNA. And then you use a special enzyme to quantify how many virus particles are present in the wastewater. Most critically, the unit I'm going to be referring to is copies per liter. So what the technique does is it looks for specific sections of the virus that are unique to that virus amongst all the other stuff that is present in sewage. The nucleocapsid protein is how we quantify the virus, but then the spike protein, which is very important for the variants I'll be talking about, and then something called an open reading frame. And then the lab that does this has various controls, positive controls and negative controls, to make sure that they are appropriately amplifying just the virus unique to COVID-19. So the outcome is a quantification of the virus, of virus particles that are present in the sewage. Again, the metric I'm going to be using is called copies per liter. Okay, so once the virus is shed in feces and enters the sewer system, it does undergo decay, but the rate depends on temperature and residence time. In our area, the treatment plants, the sewage systems are relatively small, so that's not a big factor. The envelope that surrounds the virus actually decays fairly quickly, and that leaves the RNA behind. And so what we're looking for in the treatment plant in the samples are evidence that the virus used to be present is intact particles, and we're just looking for the remnants. So there's no danger of any transmission of the virus through water. So all the folks working with the sewage aren't at risk of getting COVID-19. There's plenty of other reasons to be worried about working with sewage, but getting this virus is not one of them. This technique of looking for the virus has been used quite a while now. It was first rolled out in Europe last spring. Some great examples of data that I showed in an earlier presentation to the council from Valencia, Spain, and Paris, France. I won't go over those again, but I just included this to emphasize that this technique has been used and is in use worldwide. So the Clemson plan, the objective has been to monitor the virus in wastewater from the campus as well as the adjoining sewer sheds. So we have a community level indication of what's happening. We've collected samples from 3 treatment plants, the campus, Cochrane Road, and the Pendleton Clemson wastewater treatment plant. And most recently, we've been able to extend the measurements of the normal virus to the variants known as those from the United Kingdom and South Africa. So here are the 3 sewer sheds, Cochrane Road. This is, my cursor is following Highway 93. So everything to the west and north of 93 ends up at Cochrane Road. Everything to the east and south ends up at the Pendleton Clemson wastewater treatment plant. And then the campus itself is pretty much self-contained, with the exception of a small subdivision that adjoins the golf course that discharges to the campus wastewater. And so we've been following samples from all 3 of these sewer sheds. The samples are analyzed by a company called Cyrem in Knoxville, Tennessee. We collect them samples in 500 ml bottles and then ship them overnight. And in a couple of days, they complete the analysis, and we've been posting the results on the university's website and the city's website. Now, I'm going to show you some results where I break them up by, we call it orders of magnitude, by factors of 10. So from 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000 to over 1 million. And associated with those, as you go up, the levels keep going up. I think I'm getting a little unmuted mic.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
All right, so here's the data for all 3 systems. And associated on the y-axis are what I referred to earlier as copies per liter of wastewater in factors of 10, from 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, and all the way as high as 10 million. And as you go from in these factor of 10 steps, I've identified different levels of a concern. If you're below detection, there's virtually no concern. And then as it goes up by factors of 10, the level of concern keeps going up. The dividing line that many of us use is 100,000 copies per liter. That's when, basically, I don't know a place in the world where we've done this, where copy levels in that range and above, that good things are happening. That generally speaking, when you're above 100,000 copies per liter, there's reason to be concerned about active transmission of the virus. Now, in order to help dissect this, because there's a lot of data on this one slide, I broke it up into the 3 sewer shows. So here's the one for campus. And to each of these, I've added major events color-coded. So this was the mask ordinance that the city passed back at the end of June of last year. Students return to the dorms here. Hybrid teaching begins on the Clemson campus here. Thanksgiving, followed by the end of the semester here. Students returning in January, and then spring break, okay? And below this, I've included the data for the wastewater flow rates, which pretty much tell the story of what's happening during these major events. So by example, if you look at the line for Thanksgiving, lo and behold, the flow rates on campus fell significantly and then stayed pretty low until students came back in early January, and they rebounded then, and then they fell again at spring break. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, too much more time, because basically, I think it's safe to say that things are under good control on campus because of the individual testing that's mandated for every individual that comes to campus. So the only numbers that we're seeing on campus now are basically capturing the students who are in isolation on campus. So we have a pretty good handle on that. Here's the one for Cochrane Road, and I think this is what deserves the most attention from the council. So I've included the same major events that have occurred over the last year or so. And you've got the mask ordinance, the students returning. Now, I will hasten to say real quickly that back here when we started this program and we were seeing nothing happening on campus, when we took our first sample of Cochrane Road, it was a bit of an eye-opener because the levels were in the millions and indicative of very active transmission of the virus in the community. It had stayed above 100,000 copies per liter, save for a couple of forays below that. But for the most part, it stayed above that until later in the fall semester, as the personal testing started going. And then we had Thanksgiving, students dispersed, came back with increased infection rates. It stayed high and then started to drop again after final exams. Students returned in January, it came up again. And then you can see a steady decline here. So I would say that things were improving markedly. And in fact, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points in a row, 7 samples in a row, covering more than a month, when we had things well under control. We were below 100,000 copies per liter. Certainly we'd like to see them go lower, but this was a watershed moment for our community, seeing the levels drop below that. And then after spring break and perhaps related to changes in the mask ordinance, the levels have since jumped up above 100,000 copies. And I have 3 new data points that I didn't have time to plot, but they're all in this 100,000 range for the last 3 samples. Pendleton Clemson, which services a more residential part of the area, a greater number of residences versus student housing. The numbers of virus copies per liter has never been quite as high as it's been at Cochrane Road. And most recently, we've had a good long run, like we did at Cochrane Road, below the 100,000 range. Only recently has it come close to that, but the last 3 results I got have also been in this range below that level. Okay, now what goes along with this is the widespread testing, personal testing that's being done on campus. You can see that we have very good control of the positivity rate on campus. the concern I have is what's happening beyond the campus in the community. So I just wanted to share this with you, which is not publicly available data, but it is from the Renewable Water Authority in Greenville for their Malden Road wastewater treatment plant. They, like us, have been following the concentration of the virus in their wastewater. That is this purple line. And you can see for most of the time they've been monitoring, it's been above 100,000 copies per liter. And that has been consistent with the large number of cases that have been reported in the Greenville area. But recently those numbers have come down and they've stayed below 100,000 copies per liter as the new cases have fallen. So that's indicative that, like what we saw at Cochrane Road, where good attention to social distancing brought the levels down below that 100,000 range, we're seeing a similar response in Greenville over the last couple of weeks. All right, the main thing that I want to communicate to you tonight with regard to new information is that the company that we are using to quantify the virus recently developed an ability to test for 2 of the several variants that are circulating out there. They can test for these in the wastewater. The 2 that they're testing are from the United Kingdom, the so-called B.1.1.7 variant, and the variant from South Africa, the B.1.351. So thus far, we've tested 6 census of samples since March 2nd. The South African variant, thankfully, has been below detection in all of those samples, but it's a different story with the UK variant. So far on the campus, 28 to 71% of all the virus detected in the campus wastewater in the last 3 samples can be attributed to the UK variant. And now, unfortunately, we are approaching 100% of the samples from Cochrane Road. In the last sample we got, and I got these results literally 45 minutes ago, 100% of the virus detections from Cochrane Road, 100% from Pendleton Clemson consist of this UK variant. These results notably are consistent with some sequencing that's been done by LabCorp. So sequencing means that they take the sample of the nucleic acids and they can look for all the variants that might be present. The method that we're using is only able at the moment to quantify the UK and the South African variant. But from that sequencing, what we've learned is that one of the variants that's been detected is from California that happens to be more contagious and can lead to more severe symptoms. Another variant, the so-called New York variant, that also seems to be more contagious, and also similar to our results with the wastewater, the South African and the Brazilian variant have not been detected. And I've also gotten information from the REWA in Greenville that they have started testing for the South African and UK variants, and the UK variant is showing up in Greenville as it is in our area. So what do we make of this? I pulled this information from an article from the New York Times 2 days ago. Virus variants threaten to draw out the pandemic, scientists say. Declining infection rates overall masked a rise in more contagious forms of the coronavirus. Vaccines will stop the spread if Americans postpone celebration just a little bit longer. In other words, we're in a race between getting people vaccinated and seeing the spread of the virus, more contagious forms with more significant health effects. That means that the barrier to that spread is through social distancing. A variant is a concern only if it is more contagious, causes more severe disease, or blunts the immune response. The variants identified in Britain, which is the one that we've been picking up in this local sewer sheds, the South Africa, Brazil, and California all fit the criteria. B.1.1.7, that's the UK variant that we've been finding locally. The first to come to widespread attention is about 60% more contagious and 67% more deadly than the original form of the virus, according to the most recent estimates. And this is just some more information from that article about the B.1.1.7 variant that we're now finding is the dominant form of the virus present in our local wastewater. So let me summarize. The levels on campus since January reflect students in isolation on campus. They're not a significant concern. I think we have that well under control. The virus levels were persistently high at Cochrane Road for many months, going back to June of last year, but they're finally declined for a while, along with the widespread personal testing that has extended to the community. But levels at Cochrane Road have recently rebounded. Is that attributable to spring break or changes to the mask ordinance or both? I think that's a matter for further discussion. The levels at Clemson have declined, but and have not yet, fortunately, have not yet rebounded to a higher level of concern. So that's a positive sign. However, the UK variant is now established in our area, and that's consistent with sequencing results that we're getting from LabCorp. The UK variant is more contagious and has potentially more severe health outcomes, especially in younger people. The thing is, we know that a high percentage, and growing percentage, fortunately, of people 65 and older have been vaccinated. But the concerning thing is that we're seeing evidence that people infected with the variants who are younger are showing worse health outcomes. Wastewater-based epidemiology will continue through the summer, so we'll continue to collect samples and have them analyzed. This will be an important tool for us to assess the effectiveness of the vaccines and also the commitment to social distancing, which we really need to redouble on. So thank you for listening. I appreciate the opportunity to bring this update to the City Council, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
David, this is Fran McGuire. First, thanks for doing it. That's sort of good news, bad news, frankly. And I think it supports the position that we can't stop now. We have to keep moving forward. It's like being in the eye of a hurricane. It looks sunny, but you know there's more to come to that. So I think that this sort of supports that position. But let me just ask a question. I've had a couple people question the actual validity of the test, the measure itself. And I know you're a scientist and you're cautious, but do you think this test is accurate? Is it really reflective of what's going on, or is it reflecting some noise, or how much faith do you have in the wastewater testing?
Very, very high level. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of cities and other entities. The Pentagon, I'm actually working with a group that's monitoring the virus there. So hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds and hundreds of communities worldwide are using this. This goes back a long way. I mean, polio has been a virus of concern for a long time. And in many parts of the world, we use the wastewater as a way to find out how effective vaccines have been for polio. So, and then when you look at the lab that does these tests, every single test that they run comes with it a control samples where they look to make sure that something that should be negative is negative, something that should be positive is positive, and they don't report the results unless those controls work. So yeah, I have a very high level of confidence in this. And you know, for a long time, we've understood that what you see in wastewater is a reflection of what's happening in a community, and this is a great example of that.
So thanks, Dave. So this is reality. This isn't some kind of testing artifact or noise. This is real. This is real.
And you know, I think people would love to blow this off and you know, like to believe that with the onset of the vaccinations, the increased pace of vaccinations, that we're in the clear. And I think the public health folks are telling us not so fast. We're now in a race with the variants. And it really, I'm here to tell you that the variants are in our community now. They're more transmissive, they have worse health outcomes. And until we get a much higher percentage of the population vaccinated, we run the risk of some bad health outcomes in the community. So let's do the things that brought us to those great spots, the things that are being successful on the campus. Let's continue to do those, and let's get as many people as we can vaccinated, and then we've got a good outcome.
Well, thank you, and thank Corey also. You guys are doing great work. I know other people on campus are also. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Corey's been instrumental in the campus efforts to, basically bring the virus under control with transmission. In many ways, I wish we could be doing the level of testing in the community that we're doing on campus, but in the absence of that, the wastewater is reminding us that we've got work to do on the social distancing front until we get more people vaccinated.
I was going to add to that, and to Dr. McGuire's question. One thing that we've done that's really interesting is there's a correlation now that we're able to establish between wastewater and the actual number of cases that we're seeing. So that's a further affirmation of the utility of the wastewater, particularly when there's not widespread testing conducted or available. So it's useful, basically anywhere. The wastewater is really, really useful. We're really lucky in Clemson that we have such robust testing. And I will say this, just for everybody on the call who supported the testing capabilities in the city, we've identified over 400 asymptomatic cases in Clemson in the community, and that's how you prevent outbreaks, is by identifying the asymptomatic spreaders and letting them know that they're COVID positive before they give it to multiple people. So that's been a huge win. I thank you for the support there. The last thing I'll say, and I'm happy to also answer any questions anybody has about epidemiology or what we've been doing at the university and in the community, but the masks are really what works. And so please continue to encourage people and enforce the mask restrictions and mandates. And my hope is that we are in a race against time. And if we can get enough people vaccinated, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to loosen restrictions by the late summer or early fall. And we will win. We're going to beat this. And, until then, we have to stay the course. And we don't know about the transmissibility among people that have been vaccinated. We know it's very protective for people, but we're still studying the transmissibility of COVID among people who've been vaccinated. And that's why the masks continue to be so important. So thank you for always supporting that. And I know it's been a rough year, but we have to stay the course for a couple more months and we'll get through this. And then we'll be on the other side. And the classic thing that happens is people reach a social end before they reach the medical end of a pandemic. And I know we've all met the social end. We're all worn out from this. But if we stay the course, we're going to get through it and then really be through it and not the back and forth and the back and forth. So thanks for letting me support Dr. Friedman and his awesome work. And thank you all on the council for taking such great care of us in Clemson this year.
And this is Alicia. David and Corey, thank you for everything. And that was my question, and so you answered it about the mask ordinance, because I know we talked about social distancing, but to hear you say it's still important to wear the mask, and keep that in mind. And then you gave us the timeline, possibly this summer or later. But I just wanted to echo that because I think that's real important. And I did also see how it's impacting our younger population more so, especially with these variants being in our, that you're able to detect those variants. And so I think we want to be cautious and take that very seriously as we start to get tired and fatigued from having to, be with the restrictions. But I think the health and safety aspect is the most important piece. So thank you for providing that information.
Yes, ma'am. On a level, in public health, the way we look at layering of things, and vaccines are the best thing that we can do to protect people. The next layer is masks. The next layer is social distancing. And when you start combining all of these measures, you can win. If you're gonna have to pick something to loosen, I beg you not to pick mask mandates. Like, I beg you. That is the most effective thing we have in lieu of everybody being vaccinated. And the combination of those two things is just very powerful. So thanks, Alicia, for your support.
Any other comments from City Council? Corey and Dr. Freeman, thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it. And so no other questions? Okay. Thank you, Andy, for introducing Dr. Freeman and Corey. We'll move on to our next report. We're going to receive the annual police report from our chief. He's here. The chief, the floor is yours. He's back.
Thank you, sir. I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. I think you'll see overwhelmingly, because of all the COVID restrictions, a lot of our crime numbers and the work that we do, that we quantify is down. Some are up, but it's not anything shocking. We didn't print the report out this year. Normally we do, but for cost purposes, we didn't print it out. It will be in PDF format, and we will send it out to you. It'll be available on our website, as it is always. You know, our department was able to maintain our normal working hours during the COVID. We did move some people around to cover certain things that need to be covered when we had to do the mask ordinance enforcement. We did that in a combination of regular shift and overtime, so we were able to continue on. We've changed since I started in December, basically. November 30th was the first day. As we saw today, Jeff retired. I have not replaced him as a deputy chief. I've decided to stay with our two captains, myself with two captains, two lieutenants, and then our 5 sergeants. So structure-wise, that's the only thing that'll change. And then I've asked the administrator for an administrative assistant, office manager, for lack of a better description, to help with all, the command staff deal with all of those administrative duties. In our 911 calls, we had a reduction. Again, mainly because of COVID. We had 9,952 in 2019 and only 4,029 in 2020. The cases investigated by our criminal investigations unit went almost half, not quite half. We had 416 that were assigned to them in 2019, 262 in 2020. And I think we had 90 that were solved that were assigned to them last year. We had our victim advocate here just to kind of show you the kind of work she does. Last year, she served 440 victims, so she stays pretty busy. And she assisted in 123 courtroom accompaniments and she did 16 community outreach events. We were still able to do some outreach last year, even though we had some of the restrictions that we had. We had to do it with the restrictions in mind. Our jail, we housed 739 inmates. Not all of those are ours. We do take the inmates for the Clemson University. So when you see the report, we do have a demographic breakdown of how many people were arrested. Again, that's including the university numbers when you're looking at the jail section. But it was a 29% decrease this year, not only because of COVID, but we no longer last year accepted inmates from the city of Central. So they are taking their inmates directly to the Pickens County Detention Center. So that was a reduction. And where that comes into play, if you're not aware, any inmate that we take that's not ours, we charge that agency for that inmate. Pickens County does the same thing. So if we were to take our inmates to Pickens County, they would charge us for the inmate that we would bring there. All Part 1 crimes decreased with the exception of burglary cases and sexual assault cases. Burglary cases increased 42%, and the sexual assault cases increased 43%. Now, that is a high number, but I'll say we had 10 reported this year versus 7 last year on sexual assault. So there's 3 more this year than last year. Again, we can speculate as to why that is. It's hard to do that, especially with sexual assault and intimate violence, because it is intimate violence most likely. So we could try to attribute the fact that everybody's cooped up and they're in the house, and that could be the reason why they tried to do that earlier in the year about domestic violence going up, but I don't think there's any one indicator to indicate that that was the cause of it. I think it's just an educated guess. We had a sharp decrease in alcohol-related incidences. Again, because of the COVID restrictions, we stopped the party registration, and a lot of the bars closed or they had reduced occupancy, so that had a direct effect in those incidences. Now, of note, we still responded to 430 noise complaints. We issued 25 noise citations and issued 259 noise violation notices, which is basically a warning. And only issued 47 social hosts. Now that's to December 31st. So I know that we kept getting reminded that we were pushing everybody into the neighborhoods and they're dealing with all those issues, but for the whole year last year, there was only 47 that were issued. And when I reported the numbers to the Police Advisory Board, they were significantly low. I think last month for February, I think we issued 4. So it's not like we're being told we're not having that much of an effect. And I would also point out, we don't issue social hosts strictly because of the number of people that are there. There's other activities that are ongoing that are illegal. That's why they're getting issued a social host violation. It's not because they have an inordinate number of people in their home. The drug-related arrests maintained steady. There wasn't a really significant increase or decrease. We still hosted the annual pill take-back day, and using our social distancing, it was a success. Traffic collisions went down. We had 0 fatalities last year, but we did have, of the 435 crash reports we took, only 42 reported injuries. So high number of crashes, but not as many injuries. And again, we can speculate why that is, but it's pure speculation. Our vehicle pursuits decreased from 18 to 13. Our traffic enforcement, we did a little over 5,300 vehicle stops last year, issued about 4,200 citations. The demographic breakdown is in the report if you want to see it. And our use of force, we responded to 63,000 incidences, a little over that, and only 42 involved the use of force. So again, comparatively of everything we're handling, our use of force incidents are down, and I'll just emphasize that that has to do with training to our officers and trying to use force at a very last resort. It's not just training, but it's also our policies that mandate that they have to exhaust every possible means of non-force before they use force. Now, of those, in the budget hearings, I talked about getting tasers for our officers. There have been incidences where, of those 42, and then some since the first of the year, where a taser would have been more advantageous, and there are reports out there that show when tasers are used, the injuries to officers as well as the subjects go down because that force option is available. I know of one incident where we had a very irate person that was dealing with one of our officers and basically sized the officer up and noticed that the officer didn't have a taser and tried to poke the officer into getting a physical confrontation, which the officer just avoided, went away, dealt with the person later, and didn't have to use force. But there are folks out there that will size the officer up, and even though we're carrying a gun, we'll want to get into a fight with us. And having another option available is advantageous to both. Again, I talked about our community outreach despite our COVID restrictions, and I wouldn't say despite, but we use our guidelines to have those things, and we're looking forward to when we can have more and have more interaction with our community. We're even in the Police Advisory Board exploring how we're going to get our neighborhood groups back together again, and under what form do they want to meet, whether it's virtual or face-to-face, so on and so forth. There's so many different options out there. with social media, we want to know what do our neighbors want and how do they want to interact. And then finally, we talked a little bit earlier about the COVID response. Again, most of that happened before I got here. The issuance of the 256 mask citations and how effective they were not, most of which, however, was education more so than enforcement. And the only side note, in light of the presentation you just heard, is one of the things that we're definitely going to have to deal with as the rest of the state relaxes their stance on some of these things is when folks come to visit here, not knowing that we still have these rules in place. So it's going to be a constant enforcement through education effort for those folks that are coming to visit us, especially the closer we get to graduation. That's pretty much my report unless anybody has any questions. Awesome. Y'all have a good evening.
Appreciate it. So thorough. Thank you for keeping us safe, Chief. We appreciate it.
I have to thank Deborah. She's the one that helped me with that report tremendously.
Double thanks.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening. So our next item is to discuss opening meetings possibly to the public. I will start this conversation off. I think everybody in this room and Fran, you know that we've opened City Hall as of this week to the public, and we're greeting people at the door with a new camera system, buzz them in. But we're talking about actual meetings for City Council and future meetings. The emergency ordinance that allows you to meet remotely will expire April 16th. Staff recommends allowing the remote meetings ordinance to expire and resume in person, starting with our first City Council meeting in May. This would require council and their commissions to resume meeting at City Hall with limited public access, and will continue to live stream the meetings and also allow and make sure we're watching for social distancing in the gallery until it's no longer necessary. So you know the facts that are out there, open for discussion. You know where staff stands as well.
Will we still allow public comment remotely?
That's the discussion that I personally would say yes, but that would be a discussion that we want to make sure that everybody's in agreement. So.
I'm in favor of the hybrid approach. I know it's a little more maintenance for Lowell. I know it's a little more challenging sometimes, but with the back and everything, it's more important than ever, and it's a great way for people to be able to participate.
And I will look at Lowell. Lowell has been privy to, well, not privy, but obviously he's been very instrumental in these discussions. And did you want to chime in? I'm going to give you the floor on what you would like to say on the house. So, yeah.
Just meeting with you and Andy, and the numbers I've seen of people observing and calling in on the phone, trying to streamline it to be able to allow people to attend via the webinar. One of the things that allows us to do is just allow, like, for example, if you're looking at your participants now, you'll see your panelists who are your council members and those that are to speak on the meeting. And then you have attendees, which I'm seeing anywhere from 9 to 20 of them earlier tonight. A lot of them attend watching the proclamations and the first few things that happen, but they can always raise their hand there. My goal would be to say, yeah, do this. Mm-hmm. And I think working with individuals on council, Alicia, with working, you understand Zoom very well, and making you a co-host of these meetings would help. Beverly would help us. There'd be a transitional period for IT to help. But I think it's important because I think people, I think you're getting a lot more participation from the public. I think you're getting a lot more participation from our businesses. I noticed names in here that I'm people I know and I'm friends with that have businesses in town. Yeah, it's more work for staff, but I think it's important for us to allow the means for access, especially until this pandemic's gone.
Yeah.
Even beyond that, but especially because there's still a lot of people that are uncomfortable coming out. And initially, we're going to have to open up to a limited capacity and then move forward from there, But I mean, I think it's important to allow the public to be able to communicate with us as efficiently as possible. I think Zoom will allow us to do this. we can do away with the call-in, because that takes one machine out of the loop, and then move on from there. And what we'll keep doing is, instead of live streaming to YouTube, people will get used to, just like they did viewing the live stream on YouTube, is registering to attend the meeting, right? That one gets our public's name and address that they're required to attend. We don't share that information with anybody. It's just so if that someone speaks or asks a question. You'll also get the ability for people that are uncomfortable speaking to be able to just type a message at real time to you. And you can read it to them and then continue using the My Civic app. That's slowly starting to pick up. We're going to release that to the public tomorrow in an e-blast. So we'll start seeing that pick up as well. So I think it's a good idea to keep access available, and we'll help Beverly and anybody else, you know, tell everybody's comfortable. And if we need to have someone on IT here and take turns with these, we will. But we're getting ready to start training our other departments on Zoom as well.
Good feedback.
A question about the in-person, is there just from Andy or other staff the rationale for why staff wants the council members to be here in person? I'm not one way or the other, I'm just asking the question.
No, we were talking about open meetings to the public. You still have the opportunity, if you do not feel comfortable, not to come in initially. I mean, when you say initially, there's still that option. We feel like it's a choice.
Okay.
Now, we're also talking about if we're all back up here, I say here, obviously separations as well. So we're talking about that as from a safety perspective. So, any other feedback?
So when you say we're in person, this group, where all of us are back, will be set up like this, or will be set up here? How will we?
We'll be back up here with separation, and we have to decide as a group our comfort level from a safety, but then also how we want to present. Well, obviously, the initial thoughts, and that's why I'm saying it's up for discussion, was to still separate in the gallery here.
Right.
At a safe distance, still require mask, if our mask ordinance, which I assume, well, depending on where it's at. So that's all part of the discussion.
So what you're saying is, if we were up there, then you could set this back up and you could social distance in this group if people chose to come.
Correct. Okay. And then Lowell made a good point, and I think I read that, but, you know, we may have to do limited capacity at first.
Right.
But that will be phased in over time.
Yep. Yeah, what now?
I was gonna agree with the graduate approach, that if we're all here and we're doing this, but then gradually it's just another few people. Because I would imagine the general public is gonna be much more reticent to come out and sit through.
The only thing I would say to Lowell is that I think we found in churches, I'll just use that as a good example, but I believe you'll find probably all the churches, well, I shouldn't say that, but I think a lot of churches will continue to YouTube their services, even after we go back to 100% in attendance, because I think we've gained members actually by doing that. I'd hate to see us stop YouTubing this particular event, because I think we are probably having people attend council that may not would attend if they didn't have the YouTube option.
Well, YouTube, I don't disagree. I'm not saying do away with YouTube, do away with YouTube live stream. That adds two elements here on this machine. It makes it real. I mean, this is almost like just a recording studio over here when we're doing live stream with YouTube, doing a real-time Zoom meeting. We've got call-ins, we've got everything. We've been continuing since we switched to Zoom. We're recording these meetings, we're uploading them to YouTube right away.
I understand it.
The other piece of that, though, is we're talking about in these virtual meetings here right now, part of the issue this evening has been we literally have 11 video devices in here streaming over our wireless.
Right.
So our wireless is half clicks, half the throughput of our wired connectivity, and it affects our public. So one of two things needs to happen there. We need to start looking at our big screens up here from one machine or two machines and let one of you all drive it and eliminate that to where we can then live stream YouTube. Because if I was live streaming YouTube as well on this, it would start getting really choppy.
But if we're all back together, sitting up here, then we really won't need to be doing this, will we?
Until everybody's out of it. I mean, you don't have to do it now because I'm showing up here on the screens. The thing about YouTube, if YouTube to me is no different getting used to using than it is clicking on a link and joining Zoom. to me. It's just typing a name. It's just a matter of two things, but I still want to make it available because we have a good archive on YouTube. I'm not against doing it. I just think we need to come up with a plan in here to say, okay, if we want to do this, we really need to watch the bandwidth we're using in here because it's going to affect what the public can see and hear.
Right.
But I'll do whatever council wants us to do. It's just we need to keep in mind what the best process is.
Well, I just think we learn as we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then one of the options in here, if we need to, if everybody's not comfortable up here yet, to leave us set up like this, open these doors up right here and set the public in the next two rooms, rearrange that a little bit and kind of, at least that's the way I understood that was talked about. So, I mean, if we want all the council here and all the members here, maybe we do start off the first step, us occupying this room and having that for the public. They still come into the podium to speak,
right?
But seated in an open format out there because we're gonna have limited capacity.
There is sound out there, so I mean.
That's right.
I wonder even about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's nice right now. Unfortunately, we don't have a camera that I can point at everybody, but I need to be able to. But if I can go ahead and get that camera up there tied into Zoom, it should take that away. We won't need
You
it.
can leave mine on John.
So I'll ask again, because I hear it differently, so we are expected, the council members to be here, is what we're saying.
Right.
Encouraged to be here, but if they're still uncomfortable, if somebody's uncomfortable, I'll speak for myself. I look at it as still a choice, but we are encouraging people to be here if they feel safe.
Okay.
And then what I was going to say is that I think everybody has said this, and I think it's a great point. This is the phased-in approach. That's why we're bringing it up April 5th to start May 3rd. So if you have any suggestions, we all are in this together to talk about different options, like we were just talking, like John was just talking about, putting some out here in front, some up here, if that's the best approach. Because I do agree, we are very tight up here. So it's got to be making sure everybody's comfortable from a safety perspective. But then we're just, the key, and I know when we started talking about this, was just like my own church, we had a basically plan going forward on a phased-in safety plan, and I think it's worked very well. It still gives people the ability to make the choice to do different mechanisms from home, but also come here now. And I think that's real important going forward and starting May 3rd. So.
Fran has his hand up.
I'm sorry?
Fran.
Oh, Fran, sorry, yes. Fran, sorry.
So I will certainly come to the next meeting, and I look forward to sitting at the big table with all of you folks. But I do think, and maybe this is what John was alluding to, anything that up to this point has made it easier for the public to participate, I think we need to keep on doing. Sort of John's example is churches. So anything that would inhibit the public's involvement, I think we need to consider cutting back on that. And I would recommend, and I assume this is still the case, that we would still meet via Zoom with the various committees and working groups like the Clemson Next group. Because I think, those work better Zoom actually, because people aren't spending 15 minutes at the front end and the back end actually coming to the meetings. So I would hesitate to want to make those meetings anything other than Zoom, just from a timing. But for us, sure. I'll come back on in to the big table. That's fine. But I do think if there are things that we've started that have allowed more public to participate than would have had they had to be present, we should keep doing those kinds of things.
Fran, this would only apply to council and commissions of council. So Clemson Next wouldn't be involved there.
Yeah, good. I like that, Andy. Good. Thanks for the clarification.
Any other discussion? But again, if you got any other feedback, this is the opportunity over the next, basically, 29 days? So that's the plan. We just want to make sure we start discussing it up front, be proactive. So please add to the discussion over the next, like I said, a little less than 30 days. So the next is to discuss a public hearing for the strategic plan ordinance draft 1. Andy, you get to take this lead again, or not again, but another agenda item.
All right, well, came to our attention when you had your public hearing on the ordinance that there were instructions on the agenda, but the link wasn't activated. So I recommend that, just out of an abundance of caution, to make sure that you're completely correct in your procedures, that you schedule another public hearing, just in case the link actually did impact people's ability to attend. And I've also heard from other council members and committee members on Clemson Next that they think that there's an opportunity here to have possibly another joint work session with the Planning Commission to reevaluate the wording in the ordinance to make sure that it better reflects your true intentions. So that's what I was going to suggest y'all to talk about, was consider having a joint work session with the Planning Commission so that you guys can go through the wording and make sure that any of the issues you guys have are cleaned up before you schedule another public hearing to discuss it. And the Planning Commission was smart before all this Clemson Next stuff started, because they built into their agenda to have a work session pre-scheduled every month. And they just so happened to have one April 20th, which would be 6 p.m. Now, they did have a meeting on the 12th, but they canceled it because they didn't have any agenda items. I would think going to that date might cause some confusion. It might be a little too soon if you guys wanted to get your thoughts together. So anyway, that's what I was recommending, and I'd like to hear what y'all think about that.
That would put both groups together to try to wordsmith the ordinance better.
And what time?
20th, I think you said 20th.
Yeah, you said the 20th, but I didn't know what time.
You can do any date you want. I was just looking at stuff that was all where people were already going to be together, and you have half of them at that point.
The 20th is fine. What time?
I'm gonna,
No,
you said 6 o'clock, Andy?
I'm not saying I'm good with it.
Yeah, they normally meet at 6 o'clock.
If there was any way we could make that slightly earlier, that would work, because I have, I only have until about 6:30 that night. And obviously, having been Clemson Next chair and the implementation committee chair, I'd really like to be able to attend that.
Yeah, you could totally have it earlier in the day if you wanted.
Yeah, if they've already got them, I don't want much earlier on them. 5 o'clock or 5:30, 5 o'clock would be great, 5:30 would be better.
Can we do it in the morning?
Well, I can say my piece, and it's still going.
Todd just texted me. He said I was wrong. Planning Commission usually meets at 5.
Okay, that's great if we could do that.
Are we compelled, and when I say it, I guess that may be a bad word. Since we had the public hearing with the original language, do we have to have the public hearing again with the same language, or can we actually improve the language?
Andy, I asked that same question to Andy. I'm gonna let him, if you're okay, Andy.
You can change the language before your next public hearing, because you received information during that public hearing. So you may want to incorporate some of what you heard into this next draft.
Okay, that's fine.
The 5 o'clock, April.
This is
Fran,
Mary.
before I go.
You can also change the
Mary,
language
sorry.
after your first reading as well, based on information that you hear from discussion with fellow councilmen or the public. So you're not tied to it.
Okay,
Thank you, Mary.
so 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, April 20th. Is everybody got that down?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Andy. All right, Andy, you're still on staff reports.
Thank you all for your time last week for the first of your budget planning sessions. The info we learned has already been influencing our discussions we have with department heads. I have a book in here that Dr. Watt thought everyone would like to read because it has some information germane to her housing committee's discussions. I have copies here in my office if you don't already have one. And City Hall opened to the public today, and we had limited access, and it worked very well. We had people coming in for business license, and it was good to see some new faces in here. That's all I have for you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Andy. All right. We'll move into policy action agenda items. And just a reminder for the public, you can dial 653-9886, again, 653-9886, and follow the instructions. The first ordinance to consider the first reading of ordinance to transfer land in the River Point subdivision. Andy, you just keep on having the opportunity to lead.
I'm actually going to let Mary handle this one.
Okay, you were on the agenda, but okay, sounds great.
This
Mary?
came up when residents realized that when the city repaved that end of River Point Drive, there was a gap between the edge of the road and the part that was being paved and their properties that was not being maintained by the city. And their attorney contacted us. His name is Grady Jordan. And he had gone back and looked at some of the deeds and realized that that end, that phase 1 section of the River Point subdivision had a much wider easement and right of way, which created this separation between the road and the properties. What they have proposed is that we equalize basically the right of way and easement that we maintain in terms of size for the whole subdivision, so it'll look more uniform, but also it will give the owners of the property back a little piece of their property so that they can maintain it themselves. So you'll look, I think I've attached to the proposed ordinance, they've had the surveys done and the proposed areas of the right-of-way and easement. There's a water line that runs, a city water line that runs in the proposed easement. The sewer line runs at the back of the property, so it would not be affected. And both Benji McGill has looked at this, and it's gone through engineering as well, because they know more on the ground what we need in terms of the city, and they have reviewed those plats. The entire transfer would be taken at the owners of the listed properties, their expense, and all the plat work and survey work and everything would be there. And it would give the city a more well delineated, basically an updated surveys in terms of where our easement and right of ways are there at that end of that street. If you've been down there, it's a little rough down there at the end. And this will help their properties look nicer and help us know, exactly where our lines are. So I'll answer any questions.
Mary, this is Fran. Are there sidewalks there now at all, or any sidewalks in that neighborhood or in this area you're talking about?
I didn't look for sidewalks. I know there's, seems like if I've been down there, there may be sidewalks around the other sides of the property, but I don't think there's certainly no city sidewalks there.
Okay.
Really, from a staff standpoint, this thing has zero impact on the city, but it could be a positive impact on the property owner.
Question? If not, would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve first reading of an ordinance to transfer property to homeowners in River Point subdivision as presented.
Second.
Second. Wow, there were a lot of seconds. Hold on. Catherine, I just see you to my right, so second from Catherine. Any further discussion? I'll do a very quick roll call. John Duckworth. I'm going to go to my left.
Yes.
I got to get used to this. John Fulmer.
Well, we're just John.
John Fulmer. Yes. Bob Brookover. I'm just going to, no, Alicia.
Yes.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
Fran.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mary, for the discussion. We appreciate it. Other policy items, consider authorizing the city administrator to negotiate a Clemson Next project manager contract. Bob, I believe you're going to lead this discussion.
Yes, so the implementation committee met several weeks ago when we put out an RFQ, request for qualifications, for a project manager to help us with the administration of the implementation process. Again, just to clarify, this position is really about administrative work to help us organize the meetings, help us take notes, help us do outreach to the community, help us as we do additional things with the plans. For example, one of the recommendations is that we do a charrette process and redevelopment process for downtown to work with other planners that would come in. This is not someone that we expected to actually function as a planner in the process. So again, an administrative role, updating the website, communicating with the public, and those types of things. With that, we had 3 submissions. We did interviews with 2 of the groups and are recommending that we authorize Andy to negotiate a contract with Shannon Quattlebaum to act in that role. Questions?
You say Shannon?
Yeah, Shannon Quattlebaum. Shannon is a local. Shannon does have experience in project management with several private organizations earlier in her career and has been very involved in town, and that was another important factor. We did want to have someone, it was ideal to have some local knowledge that could get up to speed quickly as well.
Questions for Bob? Fran? No questions. Bob, you handled that so well. Can I get a motion to consider authorizing the city administrator?
I'll make I can make the motion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
I move that we consider authorizing city administrator to negotiate a Clemson Next project manager contract with Shannon Quattlebaum.
Second.
Second.
Fran, thank you. Second.
Fran was ready that time.
All right, any further discussion? And I'll do very quickly a vote. John D.
Yes.
John F. Yes. Bob.
Yes.
Alicia.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
Fran.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Okay, add that word, I like it, and I vote yes as well. So thank you very much. Thank you, Bob, for all your
Thank you,
work.
Bob.
And thank the committee for vetting out the process as well. We appreciate that. Next will be, let's see, make sure I'm safe. Catherine, Councilmember Watt's going to talk about adopting a new vision statement. So thank you very much.
Welcome. We have been at this for a while. I think that it has been edited and seen by everybody on council, if not my sincerest apologies. John Fulmer, you're probably the one who didn't see it. The proposed vision and value statement for Clemson reads as follows. The city of Clemson will be recognized nationally for its excellent quality of life for all residents, exceptional core city services, and its sense of community, with an emphasis on our key values: inclusivity and conscious progression towards equity for all, engaged, healthy living across the lifespan, environmental sustainability, smart planned growth based on healthy transit-oriented urban design principles. Thank you, Bob. Creating a resilient economic environment that supports our residents, businesses, and nonprofits, safe and secure communities, mutually beneficial town-gown relationships,
cultural, community, and lifelong learning opportunities, and neighborhood integrity and support. And for those who asked why neighborhood integrity and support was last, I would say that sometimes you save the most important thing for last.
And just out of curiosity, we changed neighborhood integrity and safety to neighborhood integrity and support.
Yes, because we then added safe and secure communities.
There we go. Thank you for clarifying.
Only a university town could create this statement.
Most are much briefer, right?
I know there's been a lot of time and energy from many individuals.
Actually, that's completely untrue. I have seen many city missions and visions that are paragraphs and pages.
All right.
One dot per PhD.
I do appreciate everybody vetting it out and getting community input throughout the whole process many times. So thank you very much. I know the committee works hard, and I like what we see. It's a great proposed vision and vision statement.
Robert, just two really quick
Yes,
things.
Frank.
One, I just noticed it. So Catherine, is urban design include like design in small towns like Clemson? Urban design is not something that's urban, right?
Right. That is that's Bob Brooker's statement.
Yes, that is healthy urban design is a semi-universal term for that. We have a nod to ensuring that we think about the overall health of the community, and it's a smart growth kind of firm.
Okay.
And unfortunately, our density in some areas does put us in that urban category.
Yeah. And just second, really quick, I was at a meeting last week with some PRTM people out at 12 Mile Beach, and the discussion was what we're going to do with it. And the experts suggested a good starting point would be coming up with some sense of a vision for how we wanted to have 12 Mile Beach look and be and behave. And my comment was, now that we are going to have a city vision, I think it's very appropriate that things like that have their own visions or purpose follow from what our vision is. So we have this uniform sense that this pervades a lot of the decision making. So I think this is great. It's simple and to the point. And you can see how someone like 12 Mile Beach, in their own sense of a vision for that location, can very easily implement the things we have in here, incorporate it. Now, I would suggest that become the general approach to everything we do in the city, that this vision statement drives everybody else's vision and mission and approach to things. This is great. You guys done a really nice job on this. It's really clear and crisp and short, which makes it meaningful and not lost in verbiage. So well done, people.
Thank you, Fran. I think that the other thing, I agree with you completely, especially areas like 12 Mile Beach. It also, I think, will be helpful as we design more grant applications and work to get more grant funding in, that we always relate back to this as, like you said, part of an arm of whether it's the environmental or urban design and all those things. It gives us a focus.
All right. Good feedback, good comments. This will only require one reading, and any changes, if we do approve it, will go to the website, and our new statement will be adopted. So would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we adopt the proposed vision and value statement.
I'll second it.
Thank you both. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Catherine. All right, any further discussion? If not, we'll go around real quickly. John D.
Yes.
John F. Yes. Bob.
Yes.
Alicia.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
Fran.
Wholeheartedly, yes.
No, enthusiastically, yes. Okay. And I, yes, as well. I'm excited to see this posted on our website in the near future, and appreciate again everybody's hard work.
Hey, Robert, just one other thing. I would like to see us, like, as we incorporate this into the city, I want to see us when department heads are coming forward and when we're receiving reports, I want to see it done. Like, what is this doing to move the needle on quality of life? What is this doing to move the needle on health? What's this doing to move the needle on economics and our business climate and those kind of things?
A living document that we're using every day.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you, Bob. All right. The next is consider request for displays on the city message board. And just for a reminder for everybody, if somebody wants to be considered like a local service club, and we have 3 local service clubs to promote their events on the electric message board in front of City Hall. we get groups to request to use the sign, but it has to be approved by city council. So there's no further action if we do approve it. We have 3 different requests. I think we can include all 3 in the same. One is the Sunrise Rotary Club. One is the Rotary Club, I assume the Clemson Rotary Club at noon, and then the Satoma Club. So would somebody, any questions, comments? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to consider these requests to display so they're able to use the city's message board?
Make a motion, we allow Sunrise Rotary Club, and Tacoma Club to display on the city message board following standard procedures.
Thank you, John. Second?
I second.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you. Any further discussion?
I would just put, just for the public out there, because when we put this in place, staff does still approve the message. I mean, there's a set criteria, so it's just out of our hands now. We used to have to approve each message, but it's not just kind of anything goes from these.
I think you said it very well. Any appropriate message. Most of the time it's being used, obviously, for
And it will be
community
approved.
events, but it is still being vetted out on what can be posted. Make sure it's appropriate, so yes. All right, I will go around. Time I'll switch it. Catherine,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
I didn't even say John, and John.
Yes, we know what order you're going in now.
Yeah. Fran.
Visibly, yes.
Okay, there you go, different word every time, I
Well, he
love
said to
it.
go last every time.
I guess, anyway, all right, I don't have to. Anyway, I vote yes as well, so thank y'all very much. So those 3 clubs, those 3 very worthy clubs are able to use the message board going forward. All right, the next item is to consider approval of a contract renewal with the Joseph F. Sullivan Center for Specified Health Care Services. And Tracy, is she on there? Well,
She had texted me, but
Many issues tonight, so I'm gonna take over for her.
Andy, you got double duty or more triple or quadruple anyway. Yes, thank you, Andy.
Every year, we have an agreement with the Joseph Sullivan Center to provide acute healthcare services for city employees, and it's full-time and part-time employees. And what that means is we pay them a contract amount of $25,000, and employees can go there to get seen if they get sick or have a cut or a bruise or allergies. That's why I go there. But it makes it so you can get in the same day you call. Normally, if you go to your primary care physician, you might have to wait a week or so before you can get that medicine. And what we have found is that this has allowed it so people don't let their head colds turn into bronchitis, and they can get to the doctor and a prescription all within about an hour and a half, basically depending on traffic on campus, and then they get back to work. This is really beneficial for people with kids like me, because you can take your kids over there to see a nurse practitioner and get same day service and get everyone feeling better even quicker. And our part-time employees really like it because they don't have health insurance through us, but then they also have a way to go over and see a primary care physician. The other benefit here is that it helps people follow up on their wellness initiative goals. Every employee of the city has an opportunity to receive a small discount on their insurance coverage by joining the wellness program. And this is another outlet for them to follow up with the wellness nurse's recommendations. It's been a great service. The employees really enjoy it. It's remained unchanged from previous years. Costs $25,000, and that's any questions about it?
Any questions? Can I get no other questions, discussion? Can I get a motion to consider approval of the contract?
I make a motion that we consider approving a memorandum of agreement between the Joseph F. Sullivan Center and City of Clemson for specified health services, schedule access to acute care for a 1-year period.
Second.
Thank you both. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Bob. Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. I'm just going to switch it up. John F.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
Alicia.
Yes.
John D.
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Fran,
Because this clearly meets the city's new value of healthy living across the lifespan, I vote yes.
maybe I should start clarifying, it's a yes or no.
Start with
But
Fran.
no. I'm gonna start with Fran now, but,
Loving it.
I vote yes as well. Thank y'all very much. Thank you, Andy, for presenting that, and I know Tracy is very involved, so we appreciate everything she does on the HR side. The next item is to consider authorizing Lowell, our IT director, to purchase a backup battery from the 911 data room. This is obviously, I know, and Lowell may please elaborate, until the generator basically comes up online in the event of a power outage. Is that correct?
That's correct. This, we have this, same device here. Since we moved our new, server room or DMARC, to the basement, new server room at the police department. We are in the process here over the next month, getting ready to start moving equipment from upstairs to downstairs, and it's gonna happen quickly. But this is an 800 pound device, and it takes up half a server cabinet. But we were going to purchase this last year. It comes out of the E911 funds. We get 80% reimbursement on it. I posted this on a site that we utilize, GovSpend. It's a great site. I go out there and I plug it in. I know Andy and Jeff Stone have used it quite a bit as well, and it just fires it out to whoever is on that site. Can do a simple search on it as well. Applied Computer Online Services came in at the low bid. We've utilized them before. I haven't had any issues with it. We had a total of, I want to say, 14 different people inquire. There were 5 or 6 of them that were non-responsive, either submitted a bid and didn't hold it out there for 30 days, or just sent a question or said, will you take a different brand? And the reason I said, no, I won't take a different brand is because the one we have in this building here, we've had for about 8 years, and we're just replacing. APC is the top quality, in my opinion, of the battery backups for it, but it's a must, but we will get 80% reimbursed on it.
Wow, that's awesome.
All right, any questions for Lowell? Any further?
And we're responsible for 20% of that price on that.
I just did the math, 2876.
2876.
Got to add tax to it.
I'm sorry.
What?
Add tax. My fault.
Get off
Thank
the
you.
university. Got to add tax.
Thank you, Lowell, for clarifying that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for Lowell? Thank you. Discussion? If not,
I move that we authorize Lowell to purchase the backup batteries for the 911 data room.
Second.
thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Bob. Any further discussion? All right, Fran?
You're pushing me, Robert. A highly energized yes.
I vote yes. Catherine?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Because this makes us a more safe and secure community, I vote yes.
You're gonna put that every time with the values. I love it.
Yes.
John, yeah, and John D.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. And
Fran, we can't wait to have you back in the.
so the last item on the policy action agenda will be consider the approval of the Joint City University Advisory Board appointment. Well, do you have, yes. Thank you. So quick.
Can you see that okay?
So you will see, and hopefully everybody got a chance to review these. We could make the determination tonight if you are willing to. You can see some are already on there, and to make sure you're still, for example, just happen to be the first one, it's not because of me, but you'll see economic development. Well, can you scan down or up, I guess? Yeah. Or we could just go, all right, we go to public safety. Okay, so right now, chair is John. If he's willing to still stay on that, you would just say yay?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, for example, you'll see there's opportunity for public works, transportation, and we'll scan up, thank you so much. Communication. Well, Fran, you're on communication, and make sure you're still comfortable with that, or you change. You may want to change. I believe you want to change if that's not, if I'm not mistaken.
I was gonna say, it makes more sense on transportation, since that's the subcommittee I'm on for the Clemson Next.
Okay, so Fran would be on transportation. John D is under public safety, and then we'll keep on going. Yeah, go up, I guess. Oh, yes, economic development, if y'all are okay, I'm still on there. I'd like to serve again unless somebody else wants to serve. If that's okay. And then housing, Lisa, you've been on there.
I'm
You want
on
to
there.
continue to serve?
I would, but if there's something else I need to be on, I can change. But yeah,
Charlie.
I like to serve on that to keep the numbers so we can make sure that information is accurate. Yeah.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
I just said I thought she was a good fit on there. Her voice was
Okay,
good
so
on
that'd be great. So Lisa's still in housing, thank you very much. And then we'll scan up Lowell. Sorry, or scan, I guess I should say scan down.
Public Works?
Well, we did transportation with Fran, Public Works.
I'll do public works, I don't mind.
All right, thank you, Catherine, for stepping up. We appreciate that. You see, it's a small group. It's
Are they gonna
powerful.
get other people from?
Yeah, like me and Todd brought out, we're gonna go have lunch.
Yeah, y'all are small but powerful. No, there will be opportunity to recruit others as well. And so, but this is really just from a city council perspective of where you're gonna be from the Joint City University Advisory Board. Communications. I know Fran was on there, but he's now on transportation.
I'd like to do humanities, arts, recreation.
Okay, sorry, we
And,
skipped
so that leaves, puts
I'll
John
take it, then I'll leave it for communication.
All right, so John, thank you, Bob. So humanities, arts, and recreation will be Bob. Communications will be John Fulmer. And I think we covered everybody. Beverly or Andy, did I miss anybody?
Looks good, Robert.
Looks good? Okay. Can I get a consideration for approval? I can read those again, or we can read it. Well, some of them,
Move that we consider the approval of the JCUAB appointments as presented
perfect.
and discussed.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Alicia. Okay, thank y'all. Any further discussion? All right. Fran, your vote.
I'm trying to think here. At your service, I'll vote yes.
John Fulmer.
Yes.
John Duckworth. Alicia.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank y'all very much. We moved through that and very good discussion, so I appreciate that. Mayor, council reports, comments, new business.
Robert, I have two things. If I could go now, or you want me to wait?
No, this is your time, Fran.
This is it.
One of these I actually already communicated to Andy. So when I met with those people at 12 Mile Beach, it sort of occurred to me, and I remembered that I think Bill Caraway had presented the annual report from the Recreation Advisory Commission that I think had 3 or 4 recommendations for action in there. And I don't know that council ever took that up. So I asked Andy that maybe at our next meeting, we could get a copy of Bill's report. And I'm pretty sure they made recommendations and start a discussion on the things that they talked about. And do you want to take action on any of those? Okay. And then the second one is that there still seems to be some confusion about the status of the comprehensive plan. Now, just to clarify, we as a council did approve a comprehensive plan last year, right? Because we had to do that with the understanding that that would be edited. And I think Todd is working on editing now. And also that we would evaluate it as the year went along for other changes or whatever. But is that the correct status of the comprehensive plan right now? That there is one approved, it's under the editorial stage, and it's still open to discussion if we want to make any additions or changes as we go through Clemson next. Yes, no, is that where we are?
That's where we are, Fran. Todd is going to find a consultant who can get that thing edited and make sure that everything connects up well so that you have a nice clean draft to start working with.
All right, because I think part of that concern was the one that's posted on the webpage right now actually says 2014 in one place, but I know it's the updated one and it's not the edited. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify so that was sort of, that I wasn't misleading people when I said that, but thanks, Andy. That's all I had, Robert.
Fran, let me go back real quickly on your first one on 12 Mile. Do you saying that we'll discuss that on the 19th? Is that correct?
Well, that wasn't
what
12
I heard.
That wasn't 12 Mile though. That was the annual report that Bill Caraway gave us from the Recreation Advisory Commission as a whole. And as I said, I believe he had some recommendations in there that he wanted council to look at. And I don't recall that we actually did that. I may have forgotten, but I don't remember doing that.
And I think that, and I'll just add, I think Carrie Carlson, she's actually leading the committee now, so we'll follow up with her as well. So just, yeah, I know Bill presented, but he was serving, and I know now Carrie's serving, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a good point. Thank you, Fran.
Thanks.
Couple of events, hopefully everyone on city council knows about, and you see it on the website, the picnic in the park, JC Park, from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Wednesday in April 7th, 14th, 21st, 28th. Obviously, COVID precautions there. Clemson, all these, Clemson Parks and Rec Community Garage will be April 10th, Saturday at Nettles Park. CAM has a concert series that's starting this Sunday at 3:30, April through June 20, well, through this year, starting again this Sunday at 3:30, the concert series at 214 Butler Street. And the last thing is May 1st is the first annual For the Love of the Community Black-owned pop-up from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 111 Earl Street, Suite D in downtown Clemson. So those are just some, lots of activities. Those are just some that I saw on the website that I just wanted to mention. So, any other reports, comments, new business? All right. If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Bob. Any further discussion? If not, unless you say no, we will be officially adjourned. I'll give you the opportunity to say no right now. Okay, we are officially adjourned.